Greetings everyone, my name is Sakti Rakayo and I'll be starting today's presentation on Disney DAI initiatives. Before we go further ado, I would like to introduce our team member. We have Tan Caitlin Eleanor Poa, Natasha Angel Holly Winata, Josephine Sylvan, Sabiana Amarisa Bianca. Together, we will walk you through Disney effort, strategies, and impact when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the company and beyond. Before we diving into the details, let me explain to you today's agenda. I will begin with the abstract, next continue with Josephine. We'll cover external narratives. After that, Sabiana will present the key issue. Caitlin will walk us through the stakeholder analysis. Finally, Natasha will explain communication objective. Disney was founded in 1923 by Walt and Roy Disney as a small animation studio. Over time, it grew into global leader entertainment, producing classic shows like Snow White, The Lion King, Frozen, and Moana. Today, Disney also own Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar. At its core, the company has always focused on family stories filled with hope, imagination, and inspiration. Disney has been always built on dreams, innovation, and imagination. Walt Disney's vision went far beyond films. He created entire world of fantasy. That's why today we see Disney not in only in movies, also in theme parks, streaming services, merchandise, and immersive experience. Blending the traditional innovation, Disney continue inspire and connect the new generation around the world. In Indonesia, Disney present through Disney Plus Hotstar, a partnership with local companies and a wide range of merchandise. For many Indonesian, Disney is more entertainment, a trusted brand that represents creativity, family, and hope. This mixed global storytelling and local relevance make Disney especially influential uh, in Indonesia. With that background in mind, I will pass it to Josephine, who will discuss the narrative, external narrative. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sakti Rakayo, for your explanations. Moving on to our external narratives. Disney has turned into a political lightning rod in Florida, charged with being too woke over its LGBTQ plus rights policies, among the other controversial topics involving their educational system. This has dragged Disney into partisan dispute, turning DEI into more of a political fighting field rather than a corporate one. To make the situations worse, the Federal Communications Commission has officially opened an inquiry into the Disney DEI practices, such as its Reimagine Tomorrow program and the compulsory inclusion standards, which catalyzed a stock drop and displays. In Indonesia, a socially conservative society, Disney LGBT characters such as a lesbian kiss in Lightyear and other LGBT characters featured in Zootopia, Cruella, Frozen, and Beauty and the Beast were publicized by the media, including our reference, IDN Times. The response was not without its own criticism. Some groups regarded this as taboo, in which the lesbian kiss in Lightyear caused the film to be banned in Indonesia. It is an indication that there are serious dangers of market rejections, negative branding, or even distribution problems in Southeast Asia. According to Suara.com reports, Disney workers at Burbank began walkouts protests when Disney publicly stood a favor in LGBT rights. Others view it as a strategy of Disney as being too politically oriented or not principled enough, a case of deep trust and messaging crisis in the company. According to Diversity.com, Disney quietly took down their DEI programs Reimagine Tomorrow and Disney Look Guidelines later that year, unmentioned in its 2024 SEC filings. This rehearsal cast serious doubt on whether Disney was ever committed to diversity or if it was just a guise for greater public approval, causing the possibility of losing employees, advocacy organizations, and customers who previously considered the company as a leader in the realm of diversity. According to the New York Post, activist investor made Disney remove shows as a Reimagine Tomorrow, as well as forcing them to withdraw such policies as the Disney look, which is no longer listed in the official materials. Such investors perceive DEI as unneeded expenses, prodding the argument that such products are deep-profiting and distracting companies. Although activist investors advocate DEI rollbacks, what stockholders are against retorting, such as a proposal to lift LGBTQ plus equality index was defeated. This internal shareholder divide possessed strategic frictions and put Disney in a position of reputational fragility with guaranteed casualties in whichever course of actions it pursues. So moving on, for the key issues, it's going to be discussed by my friends Sabiena. So for Sabiena, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Josephine. Now I will be explaining about the key issues stemming from the disconnect between the narratives. From these several external narratives, one significant issue that arises from the gap in Disney narratives is how Disney approaches LGBT representation within its broader DEI efforts. In the American's perspective, Disney offers a tale of inclusivity as part of its role as a cultural institution. Representation, as the same-sex kiss scene in the Lightyear movie, is viewed as both a moral obligation and a strategy of future development in order to resonate with new generations of international viewers who crave diversity. However, from an Indonesian perspective, the response is rather opposite. The US views the presence of LGBT people as progressive and aligned with equality, while in Indonesia, that is usually interpreted as being out of touch with cultural as well as religious beliefs. The consequence was that Lightyear was prohibited in Indonesia as well as other Southeast Asian nations. Therefore, what Disney portrays as inclusivity in one context may be cultural insensitivity in another. This disconnect forms a challenge to Disney's reputation. Disney will disappoint the young viewers and the investors in the US if it dampens the emphasis on inclusiveness. However, pushing this narrative in its current terms may lead Disney to lose the advantage in large markets such as Indonesia, as the policymakers, parents, and community groups will not embrace the themes of LGBT in family entertainment. Therefore, the key issue here is how Disney can balance its universal goal of inclusiveness with the cultural expectations of more conservative regions. This challenge highlights how tricky it is to have one brand story that works globally when values differ so sharply between markets. Now, I will pass the stakeholder analysis to my friend. Caitlin, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sabiana. Now, moving on to the stakeholder analysis. First, consumers. Disney's global audiences, especially parents and younger viewers, are central to its DEI efforts. In the US, audiences generally support diverse representation, while in places like Indonesia, cultural and religious norms makes inclusivity more sensitive. An example would be on how Indonesia does not legally protect or recognize the LGBT community. This difference affects Disney's brand image and even box office results. To balance this, Disney can use surveys, advisory panels, and also social media to adapt its messaging. Inclusivity can be bold in the US but more subtle in Indonesia, so Disney preserves both trust and access. Second, community groups and policymakers. In the US, groups like GLAAD and the Human Rights Campaign expect Disney to lead in authentic representation. In Indonesia, regulators like the Broadcasting Commission shape what type of content is allowed to be published. Now, this creates challenges where advocacy groups might push for more representation, while regulators in certain areas like Florida and Indonesia, they may restrict these types of content. To manage this, Disney can partner with the advocacy groups early in this creative process and also provide edited versions of content in stricter markets like Indonesia. In the US, publishing an annual DEI report builds transparency, while in Indonesia, framing DEI as a cultural diplomacy can help maintain their credibility and also access to that market. Finally, investors and shareholders. Disney's investors are so diverse, ranging from the US based ESG focused funds to the international shareholders. In the US, DEI is seen as a positive long term investment. But in Indonesia, the main concern is the financial risk from the censorship and backlash, and also that ESG is not as much of a priority when compared. To reassure both, Disney should highlight DEI as a driver of streaming growth and brand equity to the US investors, while showing risk management and cultural sensitivity in Indonesia. Aligning DEI with measurable outcomes in the US and with universal family values in Indonesia can strengthen the investor confidence globally. Next, the communication objectives will be done by Holly.
So by this part, I will take a look at how Disney can bridge the gap between its global inclusivity narrative and its cultural differences in market like Indonesia, where the LGBT representation is considered as controversial. And what is the core communication objective of Disney? And their core communication objective is to bridge Disney's global inclusivity story with local cultural sensitivities, as Disney wants the audience worldwide to see the inclusivity as a natural part of its brand, such as maybe like LGBT, same gender, equally gender, and same races. At the same time, it must respect local norms to avoid backlash, bans, or loss of trust. And the goal itself is to show that inclusivity is both part of Disney identity and also a key driver of a global growth. And so this strategy is need to communicate its value while adapting a different cultural context. So what is the divergent narrative in this context and in this case? So this slide shows the cultural differences that create divergent narrative for Disney. In the US, we can see that LGBT representation is widely accepted and fits naturally with the Disney inclusivity story, since like LGBT is normal in the US. But however, in Indonesia, LGBT is very controversial and easily got banned because it's very clash with the local norms, and this led to the Buzz Lightyear bans. And the key point here is the communication gap, which Disney global inclusivity narrative clashes with the local expectation. And the company's objective is to respect the cultural norms in the Indonesia while still maintaining the global commitment of inclusivity. And this is the gap that Disney needs to bridge. But how Disney gonna bridge it? By the next slide, but this slide, it's explained how Disney can bridge the divergent narrative by tailoring communication with the key stakeholder. So the first one is the consumer. It's by messaging should show that the diversity enrich family-friendly stories while still respecting cultural differences, especially in Indonesia. And the policymakers, Disney needs to demonstrate the compliance with the local laws and clarify that the EI efforts are not meant to undermine cultural values. And for the investor, the company should emphasize that DEI is not just a social stance but also a driver of long-term growth for global reach. So by customizing the communication for each of this group, Disney can align its global inclusivity story with a local expectation and reducing conflicts and building trust for the future. And to summarize all of this, we know that Disney needs to acknowledge the cultural differences between markets like Indonesia and US and reaffirm that inclusivity are the core of Disney values. And in short, Disney needs to frame the DEI as about moral commitment and also a flexible strategy that one respect cultural differences while still preserving a global brand identity. And here is our reference, and we are from group 6, and we say thank you.